Net gain, networking, encouragement, training, helping snow landscape and all small businesses hire, train, retain, and engage the best teams to build those win-win workplaces. Are you looking to thrive at work? Here is your Net Gain. This episode of Net Gain is sponsored by Wolf America, wheel loaders engineered specifically for the snow contractor. Wolf America machines are developed with real-world input from snow professionals who depend on their equipment during long, demanding storms. If you're considering a new loader for your fleet, reach out to Aaron and Harry at Wolf America or visit wolfamerica.com. Wolf America Loaders, tried and true by snow pros who have been in the middle of the fight. Welcome to Net Gain. This is Networking Encouragement Training. I'm your host, Evan Tashwire from Jack of All People Trades. We exist to help snow landscape and all small businesses hire, train, retain, and engage the best teams. We're here with our SIMA roundtable recap. So I'm going to let my panel introduce themselves to you. If y'all want to get started, Adam, Stevenson, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Evan, thanks for having me on. I really relished that the opportunity when you talked about having a roundtable after SIMA. I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of get together and have a meeting of the minds and really understand from different perspectives on, how the show went, but also understanding how everybody uses the show and how they benefit from it. To introduce myself just briefly, I'm based out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and I work for Snow Wolf Plows, and I run the inside sales operation here. So essentially, if you call into Snow Wolf and you have a question about equipment or you want to get a quote, you're probably going to talk to me. Been with the company for 4 years, and man, I love the snow industry and really happy I stumbled upon it.
Awesome. So, Randy, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I concur with everything Adam said. I'm based out of the Wakeville, Minnesota area, just south of the cities. I've been with Snow Wolf for about 6 years now. I've done various roles in the company, from production to inside sales to customer service, and now I'm the regional sales manager for the Northeast. I've been that for about a little over 3 years, and my primary focus is strategic growth in the region, helping legacy customer relations, and then helping build and maintain the dealer network is my main focus. And if you're from that part of the country, you've probably heard from me at some point.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So Adam Hansen, you'll put you up next.
Yeah. Again, Adam Hansen. I work for a company called Synatek Solutions. It is actually a Pennsylvania-based company. We do a lot of things in the green space and fertilizers, herbicides, other chemicals, grass seed, things of that nature. In robotic mowers, we have a division called Ecotronics, which does a lot of work with irrigation systems on golf courses. But my focus is on the winter product side. I have about 17 years of experience in the snow industry, whether it be as a contractor or working on the equipment sales side. But my job at Synatek, I'm a national sales representative, so I go to shows, I sell products to customers. But what I also do is I work in the product development space. So focusing on some of the new products that we're working on, just to better help the snow industry. Again, when we're looking at chloride reduction, safer surfaces, things like that, there's a lot of factors that we're working with here, trying to have a high quality product and save the contractor money at the end of the day. So again, I kind of have a two-part job, selling, but also helping develop products for the future. And very excited to be here with Evan and everybody else, and hopefully come up with some good feedback for the SIMA crew and talk about what we learned and the type of people we met at the show.
Awesome. And then last but certainly not least, Aron Rodman, who we've had on Net Gain several times. Just introduce yourself for the panel. I think we have. You were muted.
He cut out for a minute, Evan, so he just jumped on.
There again for a minute?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking. I'm sorry, I adjusted my monitor for 1 second and it disconnected the cord from the back. I had to restart it, and when it silence, so I couldn't figure out what was going on. All right, we're really
We're leaving that in there. So, all right, sounds good. We're on intros,
right.
We're on intros.
Okay, and assume it's me.
Yes.
My apologies. Hey, so I'm Aaron. I'm with Extra Mile Snowplowing for the SIMA show. We did double duty. We're also the U.S. dealer for Wolf America wheel loaders. So we attend the SIMA show double duty, both as attendees who love snowplowing and own and operate a large snowplowing operation outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then also on the show floor as a dealer. So we are getting to experience from both sides and enjoy aspects that have to go with that as well.
Awesome. And that does remind me, shout out to Wolf America. They actually are the first official sponsor of the Net Game podcast. So you'll see more from them, but definitely reach out to Aaron and Harry if you ever are looking for loaders, whether you're a contractor or want to connect with them as a dealer in any way. And then I see Jeremy just stepped in. So if you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll jump into the show itself.
Yeah, so I'm Jeremy Kirkham. I used to be in operations. Now I work at Storm Solutions. On the vendor side, some Metal Plus, Arctic Razorbacks, liquids, stuff like that. So this was my first time going to SIMA as a vendor.
Awesome. So we got a great panel here. So we're going to kick it off. One thing I like to start Net Gain with, the E in it's for encouragement. So with an encouragement, I actually want to flip this a little bit. Rather than an encouragement from me to the audience, which I usually hit, is an encouragement from us to the SIMA staff. So, if a couple of us, everybody wants to go around, just give a quick shout out. You can shout out somebody specific. You can just shout them out in general. I'm going to say just shout out to the SIMA staff for pulling the symposium off, because I know from doing events in the past, and I've never done anything to that scale, but it's a lot of work, and everybody you work with has their own timeline, schedules, agenda, and a lot of times doesn't realize how, like, for example, a venue or a caterer, doesn't realize how they need to respond by this date because you're trying to get this point done to have this in place. So just a huge shout out to, Martin, Heather, and the whole team for coordinating all those details, because it's a lot of moving parts that, frankly, I wouldn't want that responsibility. So I give them the flowers on that. Anybody want to go next?
I'll jump in there. I'll definitely second what you had to say. I felt the same way. However, I actually had this written down. I wanted to give a special recognition to Brian Ivy from Norcast. Did a bunch of classes and seminars. He's also, a while back, he was on your show. Yeah. Some general feedback we had going around was many of the presentations that were done by someone who's with a tech company or has something to sell, on a 45-minute presentation seemed like a 15-minute infomercial with nothing else to do the rest of the class. Brian Ivy, he did not promote himself nearly as much as he should have. It was on a weather forecasting class. Learned so much. He did such an amazing job. Wish there was another hour that class could have went. And then finally, on the last 30 seconds, oh, hey, by the way, I'm with Norcast, and if you ever need us, let me know. But I thought that deserves some special recognition there.
Huge shout out to Brian. Check that episode out. I did do a great conversation with him, and he's somebody that when you talk to always just wants to add value, regardless of whether you're a customer or whoever. He just wants to add value to the game. So anybody want to go next? Shout outs to the SIMA staff.
Yeah, I give a shout out to Veronica and Andrew. They're fairly new still with SIMA, and they had some pretty big shoes to fill, right? In Amanda and Evan, who left. So I really found they did a good job in Cincinnati. I seen them mingling with a lot of people, making sure everyone was having a good time, finding what they needed. So yeah, to them for sure.
Yeah, huge shout out to them. I'll give Veronica her flowers. She started, and I remember because I talked to her at Storks, she started, I think, 9 days before that show. So it was like hit the ground running. It was like that, and you're in full symposium planning and picking up. And, she actually got me on board as a supplier member during that time, which I'll appreciate because I know that wasn't an easy time. So yeah, definitely shout out to her. Two Adams and a Randy, who we want to shout out.
Sure, I can slide in. As far as encouragement goes, this is my Cincinnati was my fourth SIMA that I attended, and as a vendor, Snow Wolf, we're a snow plow, snow blower, and snow tire manufacturer, and so we always advertise our product and look to network when we're there. So we always have a booth. We feel like it's the most important snow show of the year as far as representation overall for our company. And out of the 4 years that I've been attending, I think Snow Wolf has been attending. We did a recap, and I think we were all in agreement. This was by far the easiest show to be in and out of. It was just felt super well organized, whether it was from the staff with the setup or just communication to get in and out, and then just the planning as well. I mean, I think top to bottom, it was just very well run this year, and that reflected across the show. And we actually brought one of our warehouse managers out to help out with our equipment this year. And he actually commented and said, man, this was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So I don't have any specific names in the SIMA staff to actually shout out, but I just think as a whole, it was noticeable this year of how well ran it was. And it's just, I think, it's going to highlight what's to come.
Definitely. Yeah, the logistics were on point. So Adam or Randy, you close us out?
I'd be happy to go here. It's, again, organizing a show of this magnitude is no small task. And there's a lot of people that have their opinions on things, and I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit here today, but again, it's a lot of work, and the fact they just keep pushing forward and deliver a really good show for us, well attended. The one thing I'll say too, when I first walked in on setup day, somebody, and I forget her name, she worked for SIMA, but I asked, oh, hey, where do I go to get my badge? And she knew, and I go up and get my badge, and that was an easy process. Anybody from SIMA that I talked to during the entire week, I asked them a question, and they had an answer for me immediately. Most of these shows I've done, probably over 100 shows now in my life. And most of the time you go to something like this, you ask a staff member of the show a question, and they immediately go, I don't know. I'll have to check. Again, everybody here seemed to know what was going on, very dialed in. So I would say there's probably really good organization on SIMA's part, just making sure everyone's on the same page. Everything's well thought out and well planned. So yeah, kudos to them on that. Very good show in that regard.
Definitely. And then Randy, any encouragements from you?
No, I know it was an excellent show, and there's probably a lot that has been covered. So I might just touch on one thing that really impressed me was just all the networking opportunities, because everybody, they're very busy. A lot of guys do services in addition to snow, so they've got packed schedules, and they really do a good job at making sure there's lots of opportunities for network and entertainment throughout the evening and before and after the show. So to put on a show plus all the other things over and above that around the city is actually quite a spider web of different logistical challenges to probably pull it all together. So I was really impressed with how they just gave everybody a ton of opportunities. Because sometimes on the show it's a bit rushed, and you don't always get a chance to catch up with somebody, even though you have best of intentions. So they really gave everybody a chance to network as much as they could, which I think was a lot of value for everyone. So
Perfect. No, thank you guys all for the shout outs all around the board, and, the encouragement, and I think it's important to do that. Not just, this is the employee hat of mine to put on, not just in that case for SIMA, but even recognition, really fills the tank of your team. So I think it's important to do with your team, with the people you work with. If you manage other people, definitely recognition and catching people doing the right things is hugely important. So that's why I wanted to do that, and also to give a shout out, because I think it can be easy to critique, and not that we shouldn't critique or give good feedback. I think that's good, but at the same time also appreciate, like, let's give that good feedback, but also do it from a place of appreciating all the effort and whiff that did go into making something happen. So with that, we're going to jump into the education session highlights. And I know Aron had kind of shared one from, Brian Ivy that was high value, with his session from Norcast on weather. Anybody else hit any of the sessions and find value in the education sessions? I'll jump in on this one as well in a sec too.
I'll leave this to the panel. Setting up for the show and doing a lot. I didn't come in till later in the week. My focus was based around presenting at our booth. So unfortunately, I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to go to any of the education sessions, but here to hear what you guys have to say on that.
Yeah, the bars for Terry Duncan. Go ahead. So I love going to hear and learn there as an attendee. And there's so it's hard to please everybody. You've got so many different levels, everything from one guy who does it as a side job with his truck to guys running an empire and everything in between. So to try and find something that fits everybody is pretty tough. And I think they offer multiple classes at the same time to kind of combat that. Some of the classes were unbelievable. And then on the other end, some are like, how did this one slip through the cracks and get in here? But I put that responsibility on us snowplowers, because SIMA every year, they got it out right now, they're looking for speakers. They asked all of us snowplowers, anyone want to speak? And so we just, two of us here at our shop, volunteered for next year. We'll see if we get to or not, but I'd encourage everyone else and all the listeners, if they've got something they're skilled at or something that their company does that they think is better than everyone else's or just unique, reach out to SIMA and ask, can I give a presentation on this one? I mean, you got your option. There's like 2-hour sessions and there's like 20-minute sessions. So whatever you feel great with. I think some of the weaker ones were beyond what I said, like the infomercial style ones. I'd like to see more people from inside the industry. I'd like to see us relying less on consultants here. If we're going to do sales, let's get some snow companies and their sales staff teaching what they learn. And then I think those were the strongest, the ones that I saw that were actually people who were out there doing it and part of the snow industry. The consultants, a lot of times I'm seeing that what they're teaching applies, but loosely applies, because it's the same principle that they're using for 5 different industries that they consult in. I think some panel discussions, some added panel discussions, like we've all seen 100 classes on Brine 101 and 102, and they need to be there. There's people who need to do it, but there's a lot of us, whether it's Brine or operations or some other things, that would appreciate like a panel discussion on, okay, we're doing it, we're actively doing it well, but here's a couple roadblocks we're hitting. We'll do a panel discussion on, I like using Brine. It's going great, but it takes me 4 times longer to get my jobs done. Who else is out there doing it that can accomplish that same thing? But, again, that whole show is creating resources and networking where if you don't find something in the class, there's so many people there that all you got to do is start asking. Find a table to talk to someone about it, or just start asking people in the hallway, and everyone's
thrilled to talk. Love that. Except the no consultants thing. I don't know if you saw, I did the bug eyes, and I get what you're. Oh, that's a bit old. I didn't say no good. Well, no, but I get what you're saying too, and I would say also I did recruit in snow for 3 years. So if I didn't recruit in snow, I don't think I would be able to consult. There you go. So I guess I kind of proved your point then.
Yeah, I'm not going to hear a motivational speaker. I want to learn.
Well, yeah. Jeremy, you're going to go?
Yeah, I only really went to one class, if I'm being honest, because I kind of, like what Aaron kind of touched on. I walked out of the class and I ran into someone I knew, and then three more people we knew came over. And next thing you knew, 2 hours had passed. And then the next day it was the same thing. Before we even got in, a bunch of us got together and just started talking, and hours passed. And I think I get more out of that than going to listen to someone talk about AI or something, like, because one of the chats we had for 2 hours was about AI and what's working for us, not what someone tells us we should be doing, right? So I really do believe they should have like more roundtables and more panels and less of the 2 hour educational things that some audio doesn't work on half the time. Like, I think they could do better on that, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of the feedback we heard was good, was informative stuff. Stuff that covers what you need to know. Also, what might be improvement, like you said, the panels, hearing from different people. A couple things. One thing I'll touch on, Jeremy, you brought up a good point about kind of running into people, and there's multiple, as a trainer, I'll tell you, there's multiple ways to learn. So, one is obviously through the formal classroom setting. Your best way is obviously on the job itself, but another way is through peers and through those relationships. So you might get as much, if not more, sometimes out of those hallway conversations. One thing I suggested, I actually did a episode of Snow Talk with Simon before the show, and I said about kind of maximizing, and this isn't just for them, this is for any conference you go to, of like really looking at the agenda and saying like, all right, what are some courses like that are kind of hills I'll die on, of like, all right, this specifically ties to my goal. Like, for example, if you haven't ever done liquids and there is that Brine 101, that's probably one you're going to say, all right, that's a hill I need to dial on and go to, versus, planning your agenda. But like for me, I planned mine, but I also said, all right, these ones aren't as much like I need to rush to. So it's like, there were some I had hallway conversations and I'm like, okay, if I miss this or I'm late, I'd like to be there, but I can have that. So I think that's kind of an approach you can take with that kind of stuff.
I do want to point out that there are so many classes there. They did an exceptional job. So I hope it doesn't sound like I'm putting a negative spin on there. Some of it could have been me choosing the wrong ones to go to.
Yeah.
But I mean, they did an exceptional job, and I truly am putting it on us as participants to step up and volunteer our own knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Aaron and Jeremy, where it's like Simon does a good job after the show and leading up to the next one, where they give us not only as vendors but also attendees the opportunity to kind of voice what we'd like to see, what's working, what's not working. So I think that's important not only for us but also the audience to really engage with Simon, because they do a good job of making adjustments each and every show. And I think that's why this show, from what I can tell for all of us, is probably the best one we've been to, is because they're making those necessary adjustments to kind of cater, to the actual snow professional. So, yeah, I'm going to take that into account and, definitely have our staff and, some people that I talk to that have been to the show, just to kind of voice what they'd like to see so it can be even better.
Yeah. I like that. And I'll even put this out as an offer, both definitely to y'all on the panel. And I would be willing to, do this if there's interest at scale, maybe, is do a class. Because one thing I found, and I don't mean this as a critique, I mean this is just, with anything you do, there's skills to be learned. And a couple areas I find that skills aren't taught is a lot of times things that like I do professionally, like leadership, coaching, training, teaching, speaking. People just assume, okay, if you're a subject matter expert, and let's take it out of snow, for example. If you've ever been to a college or had a college class or heard of somebody who said like, yeah, I had this guy, he knew math like the back of his hand, but he was so boring to listen to. I got nothing out of it because he didn't know how to connect with the people. He didn't know how to put it in terms people can digest. And I think that can happen sometimes with some speakers from the industry, but what I say all that to say, I'm definitely willing to offer, if people are interested, kind of like a quick basics, like, how to train, how to teach, how to put together a good presentation. Because here's the thing, y'all knowledge is there. Like those of you who are industry pros, you have knowledge that I'll never have. You're steps ahead of me on things like that. And if I can, from someone who's trained leaders, who's trained, professionally, is paid to come in and train, be able to help you just perfect your speaking style and your slides. So it's not just reading off, but also maybe even tweaking your session a little bit. Because one thing I'd like to see in some more of the sessions, and I am going to apply next year and hopefully get in to present, but I want to see more interactivity amongst like, hey, let's do this 5-minute discussion at your table, and then let's come back and share what you learned, because then that puts it in you as the trainer. You're not just sitting there listening to me kind of passively, but you actually have to actively think about the material, come back and say, I did that my first year I presented. There was it was on recruiting seasonal employees. I gave out like kind of Excel sheets of like different regions. And, I filled in like where you have operators, what their availability is, how strong they are. And each table had to go through and tell me like, okay, if it's a week before potential snow, where are you strong, where aren't you, and what's your game plan? So I think something like that to actually put people in the seat and get them to do something, at least mimicking real work is going to be effective. So love to get your thoughts on that before I kind of share my thoughts on the education sessions.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Is sometimes I know, because I've done a lot of presentations on liquids, and if you just talk for an hour straight and take no questions, no breaks, people tend to, get a little bit of boredom kind of creeps in, and they're not really focused on it. But keeping a little interaction is always really helpful. Again, I did not attend any of the sessions because I was just there as a vendor, came in Wednesday, set up, did the show. But for me, I've heard this a few times at different shows where, they have a motivational type speaker there. In my opinion, if you are willing to buy a ticket to fly to Cincinnati in the middle of summer to discuss nothing but snow and look at nothing but snow products, you don't need motivation. Okay. You're already motivated enough. Like, and to be honest with you, to be totally honest with you, if you come in, and this may sound bad, but if you come in as a loser, sitting down and listening to someone give a motivational speech for 30 minutes is not going to turn you into a winner, right? Like, you're either motivated or you're not. Like, we've all had employees that we've either had or people we've worked with where usually you can tell right off the bat, yep, they got it. They may not know exactly what we are doing here, but they have the stamina, they have the energy, the willingness to learn. You either have that or you don't. I'm convinced of that. So SIMA should really focus on just the educational side. And again, like, for example, the liquid stuff is great because that's been my life basically since I got into the industry. And that's great. But so many of the classes now are very, Brine 101 or even Brine 102. I would like to see stuff that, and there still needs to be that, right? Because there's still people just getting into it. I understand that, but there needs to be higher levels. I mean, we're talking down to the pennies, like a company like Aron. I remember when you guys got started with liquids, like, okay, over the last 5 years, we've been doing this. This is what we figure we've been able to save our customers on infrastructure damage, or this is what it's saved our company. Like real world scenarios, like this is someone that has been doing it really well for a long time. What could me of today wish I could go back and tell myself of 5 years ago when I got started in liquids, what I should be doing. So I would like to see more of that stuff and just kick the motivational stuff to the side because it's pretty pointless in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because, as a vendor and as a snow equipment manufacturer, we try to present to the actual attendees, how are we going to make their business better? How are we going to make them more efficient? Why do they want to use us, and how is it going to benefit them? It's the flashiness and all that stuff and motivation. That's not what I think the typical attendee is there for. When we have people come into our booth, they're talking to us about, hey, I'm here because I want my company to get better. I need to get better. So how is your equipment going to do that? So that's really how we like to present. And we like to have our booth set up. It's just, how are we going to benefit the business owner at the end of the day? That's a great point, Adam, where you're like, they're not flying their ass out to Cincinnati if they're not motivated already. So, speaking of Cincinnati, I'd be happy to have it there every year. That was a blast. I thought it was a great host city.
It was great. I love that. And I think part of what we're seeing too, like with the motivational speaker and the opening, the closing, there's a traditional structure to something like a symposium or a trade or a week-long trade show. And that's been the structure for 40 years. And I think you're starting to see with a lot of the smaller trade shows around the country, you're getting the education, you're getting to see the equipment, you're getting the network, and they're starting to scrap everything else. Maybe there's like some fun stuff in the evening or whatnot, but they're kind of shaving off the fluff, so to say, and just getting down to the meat and potatoes of what everyone's really looking for.
Yeah. So oh, go ahead.
I have been kind of quiet on this one. I just wanted to chip in. Like, I'm personally ADD, so I couldn't sit in a hour-long session and retain. So, like, I think for people, like, if you can keep short 15, 20-minute, like, very, very impactful presentations where you can get just as much information out of something that's 15 minutes as something that's an hour and a half, if the guy presents it right and he just keeps it very value driven, and then make it interactive as early and often as possible. Kind of a different segue, but I do a lot of dealer training, and I used to do long presentations, and guys would be sitting there staring out the window at the birds halfway through it. And I asked a few guys, like, how can I do it better? And just literally trim it down short and then start asking people questions and get the crowd to start participating and make it a roundtable fast. So just that's all I had to add.
No, that's great. Thank you for adding that. I think that's valuable addition from that. So a couple of things I'll say, I'll try to keep concise here, but obviously education, training is part of what I do in my wheelhouse. So this one I do definitely have some stronger opinions on, but also, backed with my experience. The motivational speakers, I'm gonna say I hear y'all. I'm gonna push back slightly, not saying that I'm team, keep them at all costs, but I think number one, what I challenge people to do, I definitely agree with Adam's feedback about people who are coming here don't need to be motivated. And if that's the only reason you have them is just to pump people up, it's like people here are pumped up. They're coming to talk snow in the winter. I would challenge people first before saying eliminate them is listen to them and see if there's things that you can pull out that you can actually apply in your work, because I do believe in the value of, definitely what Adam said, Steven said about, people are coming to get better with equipment and stuff. But I also think don't underestimate the value of soft skills and personal development either, because people are your only appreciating asset in business. So what I mean by that is you think about whether you buy a plow or, piece of equipment, a loader, they're only going to perform at a certain level, and eventually they're going to depreciate. Same thing with things like chemicals, even technology. Yeah, it might upgrade a little bit over time, but it's only going to hit a certain level. Whereas people have more infinite cap on them if they are developed correctly. So to me, I kind of look at, and I'm not saying that this means keep the motivational speaker, but I say more keep this framework in mind of how do we maximize our people? Because I'll say I don't hear that question asked enough, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because I feel like it's a big opportunity. And obviously being here, investing in people, as part of this is a thing to do. Just some nuts and bolts I'll share on the education sessions before we move on. And y'all can obviously react to me too. I did like the recruiting session. I know that came from somebody outside the industry, but I can say from someone who recruited inside the industry, the information was definitely solid. I even learned some things that I'm going to be using in my practice with that. I really liked the session on selling big, hunting whales, it was called. It was about going after big sites and building multi-year relationships. And it was from someone who had sold previously in snow. So it was firsthand experience. I thought that was really good and encouraged kind of the long game. I'm going to say I really like the snack and chat lunch. I think that actually was underrated. And I think that actually should be probably, I would have liked to have seen that brought back. And I know they had to do the awards at some point because you had other people that sponsored, but I almost felt like I don't know if y'all were in the snack and chat lunch, but when they cut in and did the awards, like my whole table was like, oh, come on. Like we were just getting on something good. Like I feel like that should be, and I even said specifically, I said, looking at the schedule this year, if you cut even if you cut the hour and 15-minute sessions down to an hour and I think they were hour to 15 or hour and a half, but I'm like, cut them down to an hour, throw that extra 15 minutes or a half hour onto that snack and chat lunch. I think you're going to get a lot more out of it. So I really think that was an underrated piece, but definitely open to hearing feedback from y'all as, snow pros, dealers, industry pros of like what I said specifically on the motivationals, not motivational, but the people thing, especially.
I think you really hit something on the head there, like the snack and chats. That's kind of my favorite part. And then they moved the awards to like this private lunch thing. And it was just weird, to be honest. There was like 75, 100 people in there, and you're just sitting there. And like before, they always had it with the breakfast, right? And
Yeah.
that seemed to work a bit better. So the only people that were there were ones who were getting awards. Like maybe it's their first time going. They didn't get to go to the awards lunch. Now they don't know about the awards, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Have the whole community there. Yeah, the availability to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know this is a tough thing as far as prioritizing, because obviously as you cut one thing or move one thing, there's always the other thing to move. So I definitely empathize with, Simon or anybody organizing something, because it's always like you have one more good idea. But yeah, I think the snack and chats are good. Next thing I'm going to hit is trade show highlights. So what were some of the highlights from the trade show? I think it was Adam, you said it was very efficient as far as how people got in and out, like people were able to get through it. But what were some thoughts on that?
Like I mentioned, I thought the venue, the city, just the efficiency of it, it was all great. And I think it just, because there wasn't any hiccups, it just made for an easy show and everybody could have a good time. As far as just kind of the time that I was there, when we did a recap and we talked about the people that were there, we all kind of looked at each other and we're like, there wasn't a whole lot of tire kickers. There wasn't a whole lot of people that weren't serious there. It really felt like this year, people that were there really in the industry, looking to make moves, looking to get better. And it just felt like every person I talked to, it was a great networking opportunity because of that. It wasn't somebody that was just looking for a free hat and then they were moving on to the next place. It just felt like some really quality conversations, and that I took that as like really a supreme highlight of this show is just the amount of just serious individuals there. It made it really, really worthwhile. And then on like the vendor side, I thought everybody just brought their A game, and it was great to see. Seems like everybody's just been fine tuning their products, and especially listening to the customers, and that's really presented in what was rolled out this year. So, I just wanted to give kudos to all of our, fellow snow manufacturers as well. Is that I just thought the kind of level of product and the level of, really just presentation there this year was top notch. And I think you could just feel it in the air, and it was, just kind of permeated it throughout the whole building. It was just a great time. And I thought it was just, everybody, really used this as such a professional kind of grandstand and for the right reasons.
I feel like the industry, like people are becoming progressively more intelligent at what they do. Just because people are becoming more and more trained. I've done 5 SIMAs in a row, and felt like some of the discussions that we had, people were already up to speed on a lot of the technology and different things that the manufacturers offered. It's just more like sort of general questions just to dial in certain packages if there was opportunities. I felt like as well, just the logistics of the show was really good. I've been at other shows in the past where you have to wait 6-8 hours just to get out of the building, and it felt like the flow was really well. So I think on the back end, SIMA should look at this show and be like, hey, the logistical flow was amazing at this place, and we should sort of pre-vet and sort of look at different venues and get feedback on like, hey, how's the flow? And is it easy to get in and out of? Just because I've had some experiences in the past, and I'm sure they've paid attention to that, but that's definitely, I would say this year was a benchmark for how easy stuff was able to get in and out and how easy it was for people to get information and do what they need to do. I also felt like there's a lot more collaboration amongst the industry too. Like, feels like people know each other more than they would have a couple of years ago, just from my experience. And I feel like people are sharing ideas really, really well now amongst the vendors. Like, yeah, we're all serving the same audience, but there's a lot more ideas getting shared amongst each other that builds the industry up. So that really jumped out to me this year.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you both for sharing. Adam and Aaron, anything from you trade show wise?
I had a contention with the amount of time that there is for the trade show portion of this. And this is, I heard this from vendor after vendor and attendee after attendee. All told together, I think there's only 9 hours of trade show floor time for the whole week. I mean, as a vendor, we don't have a medium-sized area, and we got all of $25,000 into 9 hours. And as you were saying, with people starting to know each other more and more, there is a huge art of this networking that is actually happening on the trade floor, or show floor. And that is wonderful. But what it's also doing is making it so there's not enough time to get through and see everything and get to all the things you want to see. This is coming from the attendee side now too. On the trade floor, like the amount of attempts you have to make to get to the back half of this place because you run into someone that you met another time, or you want to talk to someone who was in a class, get some more clarification from someone who taught something that was there. And there is the time. I mean, most of the vendors were showing up on Monday, and I think it's Wednesday night before we're even able to show our stuff there. On Wednesday night, I think is great. Gives everyone a chance to quick kind of scout everything out, see where they're going. But I do hope that somehow, and I know there's a lot that Simon was trying to squeeze in 1 week, but I think as both a vendor and an attendee, I want to see more trade show time. I want to talk with my vendor. When I go look at, and when I go look at one-ear plows or one-ear sprayers, I want to spend 25 minutes with you talking it through, not be like, oh man, I'm sorry, I only got an hour before the show is done today, and I got to stop here, and here. So I hope that that's something that they're able to incorporate in future years.
Yeah, Aaron, and before you go, Adam, real quick, I just want to second that is, our sales manager, actually, I asked him for some thoughts on today's podcast, and that's the one thing that he said he wanted to bring up is it's a immense amount of effort to get, like for us, we brought 6 people out there, for a week there, we're traveling from Minnesota, we're bringing the equipment, we're setting up, we had a rather large booth, so there's a lot to it. And, for 9 hours over 3 days, we did feel like we got a little shortchanged as far as the time, just because the amount of effort and also the cost that goes into it. But, maybe there could be an adaptation to where the trade floor is open also during the educational hours. That might be a nice compromise. So, Adam, go ahead.
And I'm coming at this from a guy who now when I go to shows, I have a 10 by 10 booth. Pretty much anything I set up in the booth can be, put in a large tote. right? It's very easy to set up. So for us, we have a few $1,000 wrapped up in the booth itself and in traveling and hotels. So it's really not bad for a company like Synatek because we're not bringing large equipment. I do feel for the people that are bringing in large equipment. I know in the past, I've been at shows where, yeah, I sat on the trailer for 8 hours waiting for the one forklift driver. And again, that forklift driver at some point goes on break. And I'm a very calm person, but boy, sometimes it's hard to kind of keep your composure in those moments when you see the one forklift guy sitting there eating lunch. So again, I did hear feedback from people that do have equipment that said this was a very good show from, getting people once the show is done, getting everyone out, getting people loaded up. So that's great because there's been some really horrible ones. It seems like the Cleveland Convention Center is particularly terrible for that kind of thing, in my experience. But yeah, I feel for companies that have the larger booths. I mean, my previous position, I was at Boss Snowplow, and they have a pretty good sized booth with a lot of equipment, and a lot of setup is involved with that. It's very, very involved with multiple people, and these companies are investing significant amounts of money. Some of them have to put in over $100,000 into these booths easily. And yes, for only 9 hours of trade show time, I know the same thing. Like, there's a lot of people that I know were at the show that I never got to talk to. And they would reach out to me, the following would say, "Hey, buddy, I know you're at the show. I intentionally avoided you because I can talk to you anytime. I already know you. I know what you have, but I had to go talk to other people." Right? So sometimes there's situations where you just can't you don't have enough time to talk to the people you want to. But I understand if you're, as a company, investing your money to go to this show, you want to hit all the booths that you need to. And I know people that are making a list for themselves because they're like, wow, I'm really limited on time. I have to hit these first, and then I'll go back and see what else I can look at. Which, unfortunately, there might be a booth that has a product that you've never even thought about. And it's nice to have the ability to kind of leisurely walk the show and talk to these people, and maybe they have something that could help transform your business. So I would definitely like to see more trade show time, for the vendors, just so they have more opportunities to talk to people and also get a good return on their investment. Now, the one thing I will say, it seems a little weird to say I want more trade show time. They could get rid of Friday completely, because that was the most, and I've been to a lot of shows that have the Fridays, and I understand that. But honestly, this SIMA Friday was one of the most pointless Fridays I've ever done at a show. The other 2 days were phenomenal. It's one of those things you realize I haven't left the booth at all, because it's just been people talking to me. And then the people that you're talking to, there's people behind them waiting to talk to you. Like, really, really good on Wednesday and Thursday. But Friday, again, every person I talked to, whether it be at the show or at the networking event, said, "Yep, no, I'm heading out. I got a late flight Thursday night, or I'm taking the first flight Friday morning." And most people are gone, because I understand you want to get back. Everybody, for the most part, you have families back home that you want to get to, and you're not going to stick around for 3 hours on a Friday. You want to get home, so you don't burn up your whole day. So that would be my only thing, is if we could get more time on Wednesday and Thursday and get rid of Friday, that would be absolutely perfect. And I'm sure every vendor would probably back me up on that.
100%, man. I feel the same way.
Totally back you up on that. I actually had a couple interesting conversations Friday, and I started asking guys, like, what would you do differently? Everybody was like, if we could have Friday, because people have been spending several nights up late, having time with friends and industry connections, and you're getting a bit burnt out as a attendee being there for almost the whole week. If people could start first thing Friday morning, especially the vendors that have to drive 6, 10, 12 plus hours, even further in some instances, and they can get their stuff out and hit the road early, they're able to get back home in time to be with their families by the evening, or before Saturday at least. Like, for a lot of our team, they didn't get home till 3, 4 a.m. Saturday morning after driving through the whole night. So it, like, logistically puts people It's challenging logistically to head out and do a big long drive starting out halfway through the day Friday. Like I get you can stop and stuff, but if people are pushing to get home. So not only that, and it just like there was no valuable conversations. I had maybe one or two valuable conversations on Friday. But I think everybody that attended, it was just like everybody had mostly seen everything they wanted to. And Thursday felt really rushed. So a couple of guys were like, if we could do full day Thursday, pretty much a full day Wednesday, and maybe an optional soft launch Tuesday evening, that gives you 2 full days plus a soft launch for an hour and a half where you can kind of figure out the lay of the land. And then Wednesday, Thursday, you can go out and have your discussions. And to Aaron's point, so many people felt a bit rushed that they didn't get the value they wanted out of it. And I mean, if I'm running a business and I'm trying to make decisions that impacts the well-being of my people and how well we do our operations and the service we give to our customers, I'm not going to want to try and just jump through that discussion in 3 minutes and be on to the next thing.
I'm very pro SIMA, but I think at some point the bridge is going to have to be crossed of the smaller regional trade shows. And from a vendor expense, I can spend 25 grand on a SIMA show, and other people are spending far more. Or you can spend like $3,000, and on a whole, you're getting less people, but no tire kickers. Whether it's storm days or out at Storks or, the half dozen other ones that are popping up. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of those. And I think that format works really well. The vendors get a lot more bang for their buck, real high quality leads. SIMA's great. I'm thrilled to be able to have had our product in front of so many people here. I just want more time to be able to do it. I agree with you on those Fridays. I don't think Friday's a total wash. I think it's a wash after 10:30. I was surprised. I thought that there'd be a lot of local contractors that worked all week and then decided they were just going to come Friday for the trade show. That definitely was not the case. I had some quality conversations on Friday, but none after 10:30. It was obvious that everyone wanted to be gone by 10:30.
Yeah, and that's a good. I think y'all bring up some good points on a lot of things. Number one, these you threw out, Aaron. I think the local contractor. I wonder that's a suggestion maybe for next year of like, can you really do some marketing kind of just on the trade show pass itself to the local contractor base? Like you said, even if it's for a night, like if you do that Tuesday or Wednesday night kickoff, like, invite them out for that night. And like next year to Milwaukee, get anybody that's within an hour that is doing snow, or even landscape, because you still have things there that could benefit them. And for a trade show pass, it might be beneficial to get in there and to meet all those people, and we like really blitz that area hard. A couple other areas I saw, and I did hear somebody else wanted to comment, so I don't want to cut anybody off. But one thing I said is,
I have a hard out at 3. I have an appointment with a customer now. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. This was fantastic, and it was good meeting you, Aaron and Adam, as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, to bring up, and we'll kind of wrap it here. But yeah, go ahead and get your outs. Anybody else got outs real quick before I can edit this part out, of course, or not.
No, let's keep talking this show. It was fun. Let's keep talking. All right. So I didn't have a blast. It was my favorite one I've ever been to.
So one thing I'll share that kind of came up, this is just me spitballing an idea because, and then I want to ask a question to get your reaction. I wish I still had Adam and Jeremy here for this, but they can maybe process and give me feedback later. But first, an idea. We talked about the snack and chats being valuable. I wonder if they had like a vendor snack and chat, if that would be valuable for like a lunch or breakfast where each of the vendors, because everybody's got to eat. So, each of them could go up and actually have a table where it's like the Snow Wolf table, the Arctic table, the Wolf table, the Synatek table, and you could each have tables and people could come up and talk to you about your products, bounce around. I think obviously you're not going to get as many people at a trade show, but where I see that being valuable is getting in those 3 to 4 that were like, I really want to talk, like almost the focus can be like, if you really want to talk to them, like show up to their table and then maybe give a few depending on, what size booth they have, maybe they have multiple tables or whatever. But regardless, then they have you can get those really in-depth conversations then that would also free people up on the trade show floor. If it's like, I want to talk to Aaron about Wolf, or I want to talk to Adam or Randy, specifically, I can sit down, have that deeper conversation about the product there. Then I have the trade show floor time freed up to bounce around a little bit. So I don't know what your thoughts are, if you think that would fly, or do you think that would not hit the point at all?
I mean, that's something I have not thought about. I know there was a few vendors that we at Synatek actually work with that I did have to, and that's the one thing I guess I did on Friday, because there was no one coming by our booth, and I had one of my counterparts, Paul from Synatek, there. So he's like, well, yeah, I'll stand at the booth. You go talk to some of the people you need to. So it would be nice to kind of get some of that interaction, some of that networking done outside of the show portion of it. Because I know I've even seen it where I'm talking to a vendor that I work with, another company, and you see a potential customer walk by and they're like, oh, they're busy, and they keep walking. So, before you can stop, I'm like, they're already gone. So I think something like that would be, somewhat beneficial, to maybe think about it. And yeah, it wouldn't have to be long, maybe. So, I mean, this year that would have been really beneficial because on Thursday the show didn't start till, what was it, noon? Which was nice. I was able to be in my hotel room and get some stuff done, but that's a long time. I mean, I'm a guy who gets up at 5 a.m., so that's a long time to sit in my room. I would prefer to get out there and maybe, talk with some other vendors. So I'd be open to something like that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I would second that, because there was too much. I mean, from the standpoint of getting stuff done, she had a lot of other things outside of the show to get done. That was handy, but you're there to network, and I think it wouldn't hurt to trial something like that and see if it works. And then once you actually do it, you find out, hey, is there any shortcomings? Is there anything that could have been done better? What went well, what didn't? And then just fine tune it a little bit. But I find you get some very, very valuable conversations when you just have an informal, relaxed conversation, and people, it's just a little more one-on-one, and you have time to actually have something meaningful. Any opportunity you can give people to have a little more time to have meaningful conversations is going to really, because honestly, 2 or 3 really good, meaningful conversations could outweigh 45 sort of rushed, we had a little bit of a chat, but nothing really came of it. I think from a commercial standpoint, if you could have opportunities to have 3 to 5 really good, meaningful conversations with people that you intended to talk to, and you could invite them to that breakfast and sit down and talk to them, it can double your value as a vendor to the show.
They're exceptional at listening to feedback, and I'm going to guess that they'd be thrilled if you guys reached out to them or even said, hey, can I head this up? We're all going to meet up. Can you just throw out something, vendors welcome at this restaurant, or vendors welcome for a breakfast here at this time? I bet they would be thrilled. I'm going to guess that's something that just hasn't been brought to them before, and that never crossed anyone's mind, because that sounds like the more involved everyone can be, both vendors and attendees, even if it's separate. I mean, the better the time and the show is for everyone. I bet they'd be thrilled. And like I said, with the education opportunities, so much of it just falls on us. We're part of the industry to ask.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Aaron, too. And I think one thing that could help with that, like we talked about a vendor snack and chat. Also, even I thought about the networking events in the evening. If you give maybe on that first one or one of them, give the vendors, I think about that one venue we had, I think it was the Metal Plus event where there was 3 floors. Give the vendors a floor with tables where you have food and stuff. So it's kind of people got to pass through. If you just want to go network or BS or whatever, you can go to the downstairs floor, the upstairs floor. But then the vendors also have spots. So it's if you really want to meet with them additionally, they can have reps there. I think it's worth suggesting, if nothing else, And I think too, if you kind of throw it out there and just say like y'all have said, like, hey, as our heart, we want to still be supportive. We want to still be here, but we also want to make sure we're maximizing our time. And, there are other opportunities there, as far as, like you said, the local shows and stuff. So, one thing I was going to ask, and I think this is a good way to kind of close on this thought with SIMA, but, you both, I think different people mentioned this in different ways, but kind of, people had said, like, I'm starting to see some of the same people there. People are getting more educated. I think you said, Randy, about like the products and what's there. So almost if you think about and you said, like, I think, Aaron, the traditional way of a symposium is like, opening and closing keynote and days in between. But it's like, okay, that's when we started. But almost as people get more familiar with each other, with the products, with the industry, and people are getting more educated, how does that change things? And how does a better symposium or better event look in the future, being that people are now more educated and more familiar?
That is a good question. Well, I'm excited next year for it to be in Milwaukee. That's in our backyard. We're 35 minutes away, so I'm going to reach out and hoping to help both with education, setup, and involvement. But as far as how to make things better, I think it's really just sit down and talk. Like, we had a lot of criticisms here, but there were some solid things that went right here as well that we talked about on the vendor end. The logistics was stellar. Any of you guys head out to the Red Stadium that night for the Douglas Dynamics get together?
Yeah.
That was probably the most fun I have ever had in the snow industry. People talking. We got to go hit some baseballs. I mean, totally unrelated to snow. And then all of a sudden, there's an impromptu pickup game of wiffle ball between snow contractors and some of their teenage boys from around the country. That was so cool. So all of a sudden, next day at the show, there's connections that are made that wouldn't have been made. I probably would have never sat at the same table as some of these guys, but it's, oh man, you hit a home run off of me yesterday, or that was pretty wicked how your kid got to third base there and whatnot. So I mean, I kudos to them for giving us some opportunities like that outside of snow to make some connections. But I think more time for connections and less feel good time is my way of wording it.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, this basically, like, my first ever trade show that I went to as a vendor was that's back when it was GIE Expo in Louisville in 2016. Even back then, still people were they kept everything close to the vest, right? They weren't as much about sharing and helping each other out. And then it started to kind of morph into, well, yeah, sure, I'll talk about my snow operation because I'm in Minnesota and you're in Michigan. Like, we're never going to cross paths. But now you're seeing more and more like, hey, I work in this town and so does this guy. And we can still collaborate and work together to better the industry. There's so much collaboration in snow. And I hear it from people that aren't necessarily, in the snow industry. Some of that feedback that I got, like with my coworker Paul, who was at the show with me, he's been going to SIMA for years, but this is my first SIMA with Synatek, and the amount of people that came up to me and these are people I've known for years and developed a friendship with them, and he was kind of surprised by that. And I said, yeah, there's just a lot of collaboration there. So, like we've said before, yeah, you walk the trade show floor, and instead of you see people at booths, you see people standing in the middle of the aisle talking with each other, because again, they've been at different shows, whether it's SIMA, Stormfield Days, Storks, everything like that. You do see a lot of the same people, but it does strengthen those bonds. And then when other people come into that fold, everybody's willing to work with them and help them out. So I think, yeah, like, SIMA overall is a fantastic show, and I'm going to continue to go because it's good. But it's just like anything else, the industry evolves, it changes, and they just have to roll with those changes. The show industry today is not even the same as it was 5 years ago, let alone 30 years ago, right? So But yeah, I just think more opportunity for people to get together. And again, any of these networking things, I have great conversations. I went to the Arctic party on Thursday night, and talked to a lot of great people there. I mean, it was a great event. No, I did have to go outside to the upstairs patio because at my age, 35, I'm not into loud music anymore. Like I just want to sit and quietly have a drink with somebody. But those are just great events to go to. And it's just outside of the trade show. But again, just the whole week is great. It's something I always look forward to, and is connecting with people. And we have a really, some industries may have a bleak outlook on their future, but the snow industry is not that way. There's so much education and advancement and technology that's going on. It's just really cool to see, especially since I've been in it for quite a while now, just to see how things have evolved and changed. We're on the industry as a whole has issues, obviously, just like anything does, but we're trending in the right direction. And the networking and the positive reinforcement from your peers is really cool to see. So I would encourage them to just keep going and just keep taking feedback. And that's just going to continue to lead to a great show.
I would just, one thing that I was kind of mulling around in my head in the last few minutes was, is there an opportunity for us to do a feedback forum like this where we could hop on a call directly with some of the SIMA team and share some of this stuff with them live so they could react? Because I think like stuff like this is awesome, but just to have like follow up and follow through where we actually invite them to a visit, I'd happily do it if the other guys would, and just say, hey, here's like, everybody come prepared and do kind of a post-mortem, like, hey, what worked well, what didn't, what could we do better, and then give that feedback, and then hopefully that feedback will help them improve what they're doing. But I think that's one thing we could do as vendors, or just people who are like invested in making the show better for the benefit of the industry and the attendees, is like, it's awesome to have these conversations, but we need to have follow up and follow through, and like actually get directly in front of them and say, hey guys, we'd love the opportunity to get 30 to 60 minutes of your time someday, and each guy go through his key highlights and like share it directly with Martin and the team, and I'm sure they would appreciate it. So I don't know what you guys feel, but it was something that was, I thought, could be a good way of getting the message to them directly. Because I'm sure they'll listen to this, but any way we can reinforce that and collaborate is good.
Yeah, no, I know I'm definitely going to send it to him. And that's part of why I wanted to make sure I kept it, balanced, and wanted to, make it, I was intentional with, who I picked and how we frame things, because I wanted it to be a good discussion. And, I even want to challenge some negative things the other way, just because I want to make sure it's, if we have critique, it's balanced critique, and, y'all are veterans, where you're coming from, good and bad. But I say all that to say, yeah, I think that would be a good idea if they're open to it. Obviously, I know there's a lot going on, but just maybe even kind of ask the question to them, and, I'll put this out. Obviously, we'll send this to them, but I think this is a follow-up question we can ask them directly, is like, what does your symposium planning process look like? Because I almost find with any kind of change you want to make, you almost just the same way you guys all as vendors, when you ask, potential clients, how do you buy equipment? What do you consider? Who's your decision maker? What's your process? You know what I mean? You almost want to know and ideally get in that workflow. So it's like, what is their planning process, and how do we get in that workflow of theirs and really be that collaborative partner and find the win-wins too? Because as a, association, I was trying to find the right word. I'm like, they're not a trade show organization. I'm like, as an association, obviously they're wanting to get and serve members. They're wanting to provide value in that way. They're wanting to, make sure they continually increase their membership, maximize their membership. So with that, it's kind of like, all right, we can help you maximize your membership, but here's a way that could do it better from a trade side. And I think like that local piece could even be a way that could be a win-win if you do like a local marketing blitz, because let's face facts, some of these local contractors that are, one guy operations, one crew, couple guys, might be guys and girls might be so busy working that they're not even thinking about taking a day away to go to a trade show, let alone 4. So if it's like, hey, come for one night, check it out, here's the one night price, then they get to be part of it. Then it's like, hey, here's some other stuff we offer as far as being a SIMA member. You might get people more in that way too than you would just, traditional marketing, because if you're marketing online or you're just marketing through traditional methods, those people out in the field working probably aren't seeing you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And to kind of touch on that, I was really surprised. I had one customer that I dealt with years ago in the Cincinnati market. I was able to talk to him. Actually, the first time I met him in person, spent hours on the phone with him, but I really didn't see anybody really local there. A few people from, the Cleveland market, but it just seemed like there wasn't really anybody from that general area. And if they could do some sort of marketing, maybe even have like for next year in Milwaukee, if you have, pick certain zip codes or whatever that you want to say, hey, if you're in this zip code, if your company is based in this zip code, here's a coupon code and you can get 50% off or something. I just think and SIMA show is a big deal, and to have it in your own backyard is really cool. But just an example of that, there's a show in Minnesota called the Northern Green Show. It's every January, and I've been going to it as a vendor. And my dad has a lawn care business, and I said one of the days, it was a 3-hour day, I said, hey, come with me, just check it out. He had never been to a trade show like that in his life, and he had the time of his life. He just loved it. He was looking at all the mowers and everything, stuff that pertains his business when he does. But he's like, wow, I didn't know how cool this was. But would he actually go if he had to pay the money to go himself? No, he probably wouldn't. So sometimes too, you have to give people just a little taste, a little sample of it, and that might get them to go to ones in the future. But again, some people may not even really know that SIMA exists, and they're a decent sized snow company. So a local marketing blitz probably would be a good idea for the future, just to get people in the door and see what it's all about. Because it's something special. If you're a snow guy and you plowed snow for years and you like equipment, you walk in there, like your jaw will hit the floor. All the different things you can see in one place. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just want to reiterate, though, that I believe the SIMA staff absolutely killed it with this venue. And their setup, their work, everything. Like these things we're sharing here, they're little bits and pieces. The whole thing all grouped together. I don't know any vendors that left and thought this was a waste, or any attendees that left and were like, I did not get some incredible information here. Like the attendees I talked to, everyone left thinking that they're going to implement some great things into their company and love some of the things they learned. Our vendors, I know one of you guys had said, this was some of the most quality leads that I've ever seen. Like hardly any tire kickers. Like my big concern was just that not as many people were able to, there wasn't enough time for everyone to see all the things they wanted to see there. But like on a whole, it's like 90% of it is like spot on, and such a great structure and opportunity for us to meet other. I'm talking from the attendee standpoint now and contractor standpoint. The opportunities I had to just start asking questions. Hey, does anybody around here know how to handle this type of situation when you're out in the hallway? And, there's somebody there. And it's just such a wonderful opportunity that they've provided for us to have, and made just great accommodations for it to work. We had on the vendor side, we had the owner of the factory, one of the engineers, and our sales rep from China fly up to the Cincinnati airport. This was their first time ever in the United States. They've been all over the world, never the United States. They loved being able to hear feedback from the vendor, or from their customers and the contractors. They were really impressed with the first time in the United States. Could not think of a better venue during the World Cup. There were like movie screen sized TVs all over the place outside next door for us to watch World Cup games. It was one of the most fun times I've had in the snow industry ever.
Yeah, and you can tell too. The reason, you said there's no tire kickers there. Everyone's serious. I had notepads and pens, and I brought most of them home with me, right? Because the people aren't just there coming in the booth. Hey, you got a free hat or anything for me? And so like I brought most of that stuff home because I just didn't go through it. But a lot of shows are like that, where it's people's looking for free swag and they don't care. But yeah, everybody that I talked to that gave me their card, I feel like I could definitely have a working relationship with them in the future. So it's really good that the high quality or the high caliber of people that SIMA draws in for this is great, because it's like you could easily need multiple people there that can really move the needle for you or your company directly coming from a vendor. It's crazy how good the quality of people at the show really. It's awesome. I love it.
Yep. I will say I definitely take pens. I even have my Snow Wolf pen right here, Randy. So I am a pen, but I'm not just I'm never just pen taker, as y'all know. I'm a talker, so I would definitely stop. And I think what you hit on, Adam, with what I'm about to say is kind of like in Aaron kind of reference to is I think what makes it valuable is, like you said, the high quality of equipment and everything you have there from that side to make your business better, mixed with the people that you have there, because it's not only you can go see the equipment, you can see the different supplies and de-icers and technology, but you can also go talk to people that it's like, hey, we were thinking about using, some of Synatek stuff for, doorways. What have you guys done for doorways? Have customers talked to you about that, what they want to see? And they might say, oh yeah, that's been a big complaint of ours. Like, wait a second, where did you see that at? So it can almost get that traction going back and forth. And I think one thing to Aaron's point too about the overall positivity and sharing like small changes. One thing I want to encourage too, SIMA staff, if they hopefully are listening and get to this point, first of all, if you've made it through this long of a conversation with us, kudos to you for listening to me and my friends for that long. But well, they're interesting. I'm me. But one thing I'll say is, small changes can really make a big difference. That's one thing I share in employee engagement, because I think sometimes when people see, constructive feedback, they're like, oh, I got to really flip how I do everything. And it's not necessarily that. Sometimes those little changes can really move the needle in a big way. And one thing, this is also valuable from an employee standpoint, is one thing that drives engagement is that Gallups find out is at work, my opinion seemed to count. And what that doesn't mean is that you do everything your people say, but it means that you listen to the feedback, you process it. If you can make a change and you do because of that feedback, you let people know. And if you can't, then you say, hey, this is why we didn't do that, but thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. But unfortunately, we had to balance this with this, or we chose this. But even if you say no, but let them know why you said no, it still gives them that, feedback was heard and appreciated. And I think to the SIMA staff, that kind of similar approach with contractor feedback like this can really go a long way to getting engaged people that'll continue to come back and believe in the vision. So just kind of closing out, any closing words, closing thoughts? I know we shared a lot, but if anybody's got something itching to go, speak now.
Other than what's already been covered, it's a great show, and there is few shows in the industry where you have as much opportunity to get opportunities with customers, both existing and new, get feedback, problem solve, network, get ideas. It definitely is one of the best shows in the industry, and the amount of work that's been put into it throughout the years, you just have to acknowledge and appreciate. And I really enjoy being a part of it, and I just think it's upon us to do what we can as people invested in the industry to just continue making the show better for the benefit of the people, because everybody who takes the time there to come there, I just want to see them win, and whatever we can do to help them do better and get more value out of it is really what it's all about. So no, great being with you guys this afternoon. Thanks for taking your time to spend and visit and just collaborate a little bit. It was awesome.
Sounds good. Anything else, Aaron and Adam, from y'all?
Have a great time. Hope I see y'all again before next year.
Yeah, definitely.
So this has been NetGain, Networking Encouragement Training. SIMA recap, as always, at NetGain, jack of all people trades. We exist to help snow landscape and all small businesses hire, train, retain, and engage the best people. So if you're looking to better your team in any way, let's reach out to me, have that conversation. I've also been sponsored by Wolf America Loaders, so make sure y'all check them out. This has been NetGain, Networking Encouragement Training, and we are out.
Today's episode of NetGain is sponsored by Wolf America, wheel loaders engineered specifically for the snow contractor. The team at Wolf America does more than just sell loaders. They operate them in their commercial snow removal fleet, so they understand what contractors need when the snow is falling. The hours are long and downtime is not an option. Wolf America loaders offer fast travel speeds, excellent visibility, comfortable cabs, and universal skid steer attachments, compatibility for the pushers, plows, buckets, and other attachments your crews already use. They're built to be productive throughout the winter and versatile enough to keep earning their place in your fleet during the off season. Whether you're planning to add one wheel loader or a dozen loaders before the next winter, now is the time to start the conversation. Reach out directly to Aaron and Harry at Wolf America to discuss your operation, fleet pricing, delivery timing, or visit wolfamerica.com.
With no weather, but you ain't gon' slip and fall with that. Why? Cause we snow fighters, we assaulting that. Get it, salting that. King me, the salting rap. Clown brokers, end of the road. This a cul-de-sac. Blackout with white glove service. That's the coldest facts. Sparks flying from the start. It's a Goldberg match. Wild with the snow clouds running. We be on a mission. How we put the blade down, but cutting through the competition. Women in snow bloom. Give them they flowers. Greatness coming.